Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Russell, the Prezi guy, and we are getting even closer to having a finished ocean plastics Prezi design built together. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you need to go back to the very beginning of this Prezi for Beginners playlist. Go through all of the videos prior to this one about planning, looking at the structure of your Prezi and things like that, and then you'll understand what I mean. If you want to as well, at this stage, you can click on a link below to the exact Oceans Prezi that I'm using, and you can make a copy of that and use that in your own Prezi account. Now, you might think that's cheating, and if you don't want to do that, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to get a few steps ahead and just have an exact replica of the presentation that I'm working on here, then by all means, go and do that now. So the link is in the comments below. But without further ado, it's time to look at inserting media. So text, images, video, how do we get all of that into Prezi and how can we work with it to really bring our Prezis to life much more? So let's get going. Okay guys, here we are inside our beautiful looking Oceans Prezi. If you've made a copy of the existing Prezi, then you will have the exact layout that I've got on the screen here at the moment. But what you probably notice, if you have done that, is that there are three markers here. There's a 1, 2, 3 on the screen, but this fourth section down here on the right, which is actually the big sea turtle, the giant sea turtle, I should call him by its real name, that actually has a number missing. So I just want to show you first of all how I added those numbers, and this will lead us nicely into our insert menu. So the very first thing I did is clicked on the insert menu at the very top of the screen, and we're going to take a look at all of the options in here, some with a bit more detail than others. And all I did to add those markers with the numbers in was just to use a simple shape. So shapes is down here on the bottom left. Click on that, and what you can see is that we have a series of shapes to choose from. I'm going to just move my screen around a second to make my browser fit the page a bit better. There we go. So you can see we've got these different shapes. I'm going to grab this blue circle. Now, of course, that's going to cover everything up at the moment, so I'm going to make it nice and small by resizing it and just dragging the corners. I'll just drop it into this empty space for now. Now, whenever you add something like a shape, a line, or indeed an image or a piece of text, you will always get a sub-menu appear here at the top. So because I have the shape selected, I now have a sub-menu where I can play around with the different options for that shape. So the first thing I want to do is actually make the border thickness much bigger than what it is. That's probably too much. I want to bring it in line with the others, probably something like that. So that's spot on. If I wanted to change the color, I could click Fill Color. I could actually use a solid fill or a linear gradient, which is always quite nice. I would definitely prefer to have gradients rather than just flat colors, but for now let's just stick to solid. And here we have the opacity just below. Again, these options are available for text, for any other kind of objects that you add into Prezi. We've got our scheme colors here. So again, if you've watched the previous videos, there was a whole video about getting started with Prezi and setting up your color palettes and fonts. So that's where all of those lovely blues are coming from. And if I do want to add a custom color outside of that, I can go down here and use my color wheel. But for now, I'm happy with everything that's there, so I'm going to leave that as it is. What I want to do now is add some text. So I'm going to go to the insert menu again. I'm going to click on the text box, and that will drop a text box in a very random position onto my screen. But I'm going to just resize that like I did the circle. Click inside it. So a double click inside a text box will enable you to add text to it. And one thing I would always recommend is that if you are just adding in a single number, or for instance a small word or phrase, always grab this little marker over here on the right of the text box and just drag the text box in. You don't need the text box to be as long as the Prezi software makes it all of the time. And actually sometimes if your text boxes are too long, they can kind of get in the way of other objects you're working with. So again, I've got my text box selected, and you can see at the top of the screen here I've now got all of the sub-menu items for my fonts. I've got, again, my presets, my text presets that I set up in the previous video. I'm going to choose a title font for this, so it becomes a nice bold number 4. There we go. I'm going to resize it, stick it on top of the circle. And a thing I love about Prezi these days, I remember a time when this wasn't available in Prezi, but I'm so glad it is now. But when you drag stuff next to other objects, or indeed as I'm doing here on top of objects, you'll get this really nice crosshair up here when the objects are aligned centrally. So that's what those red lines are. I know that that's directly in the center. So just to show you some of the other text options, you can also choose from the fonts that we saw in that previous video as well. If you do want to change one of your fonts to something completely different than what you've set up in your font presets, then you can do that. You can make your fonts smaller or bigger. You can decrease or increase the size. There is no font size specifically that you can type in, because of course Prezi is a zooming user interface. So when you zoom in, the text just gets really large, and when you zoom out, the text gets really small. So it's kind of difficult to give it one specific value. You can also use the very simple functions that you'd expect in any kind of editing tool like this. We've got bold, italic. We can give our text a different color again from our presets if we want to. We can give it a highlighting color. And of course, we've got the dreaded old bullet point button here. Now, I'd recommend you don't use bullet points, but that's another subject for another video. So all of the text presets will be found in this submenu when you have a piece of text selected. What I'm going to do now though is I'm going to manually zoom in. So I'm going to use my mouse here, and I'm actually just going to scroll the wheel on my mouse backwards so that I zoom in a bit closer to my number 4. And I'm going to talk about this as we go through the video. I'm going to talk about kind of zooming in to get a closer look at things and navigating around. The reason I've done that is so that I can actually see the text box and the circle much closer, because what I want to do now is hold the shift key in on my keyboard and select the text, select the circle, and then if I right click I can group them together. Again, you can use the shortcut Control G if you want to do that as well. So I'm going to group these two objects together, and then I'm going to zoom back out. Here we go. Okay, now like I did in the previous video when I was editing my topic covers, hopefully you guys have just come from that video so you'll remember it well. I'm going to right click on those objects now that I've just made, and I'm going to cut them away because I want to add them to the topic cover of this section, so section 4. So if you remember from the previous video, we right clicked, we chose Advanced Topic Editing or Control E so that we can edit the look and feel of that section. Again, I used the example in the previous video of topic covers being exactly like book covers. They all look completely different, but inside is where you leave the content. So I'm going to now paste my circle with the number 4 on, so a Control V inside there, and just put it by the turtle's head. That will do nicely. I'm going to right click on that as well, make it visible inside and outside, and there we go. So now my template should be looking exactly like the one that you guys have made a copy of. And I want to just add to that as well, if at any point it doesn't look the same, don't freak out, don't worry too much. So long as you're following along and trying to put all of this stuff into practice, that's the most important thing. So for the next stage of this, I'm actually going to take us to an area that is nice and flat and doesn't kind of distract us from all of this busy busyness that's going on in this overview scene. So we're at the overview level right now, the uppermost level of our Prezi, and we can zoom in. And I want you to zoom in to section 3, because in section 3 we've got some subsections, and these are all stacks. So if you remember again from previous videos, we have the option of using planets or stacks. These 3 sections that you can see, these 3 subsections are all stacks, and that means that when we zoom into one of those, and you can zoom into any one of these that you want to, but when you zoom into those, they fill the screen with color. And in the top left hand corner now, you notice that that green button now says page. So it's changed from topics to subtopics, and now it says page. And a page is basically a slide. And I can click that button and just keep adding as many slides or as many pages as I want to this subsection. And there's no limit on that. So it's a really, really nice way of presenting in a linear format in this particular part of your Prezi. Now what I want to focus on here, and the reason I brought you guys to this empty looking space, is because I want us to focus on inserting some content. So that's what this video is really all about. And the first thing we're going to focus in on is the library feature. This is a massive time saver. If I click on library, now for me, you can see I've actually got some of the fish and the plastic bottles in my library. Now you probably won't have that just yet, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to add items to your library. If I scroll down my library, you can see I've got tons of random stuff that don't really connect together very well. They're all from different Prezis that I've built over the last few months, so I really need to go through and organize that. But I can simply just drag and drop these elements now straight onto the canvas that I'm working on, so straight onto the page that I'm working on, and that's a really, really useful time saver. Now, to actually get those images and icons and videos and anything else you want to appear in your library, you need to go to the Insert menu, and we'll do this with images first of all, but the same is true for all types of media. If I click on the image button, over here on the right hand side now, you can see that I can add from my library, that's what we were just looking at, or I can upload an image. So I'm going to click upload image, and I'm going to find the image of our shark, and that image will be dropped onto my page. There we go. Now if I know I'm going to use my shark all the way through my presentation, all I need to do is have it selected and then press this little icon at the top here, add to my library. And if I do that, you'll see it flies up to the top. So if we imagine now that I was in a different place and I needed my shark image, I could go to Insert, My Library, there's my shark, and I can just drag and drop it. So it's a really, really useful feature to populate with content at the very start of your Prezi build. Again, if you know you're going to use your company logo a lot, if there's particular images that you're going to use a lot, even if there's videos that you're going to reuse in a lot of your Prezi designs, add them to your library. Really, really simple to do and a big time saver. Now, I just want to go back to inserting images, because as well as uploading an image of your own, you can search for images on Unsplash. And Unsplash is an online library of royalty-free, high quality images. So if I type in here shark, let's see what comes up. And you can see there's lots of nice looking images, and maybe I could just drag and drop this very first one onto the screen. And a nice thing to do here maybe would be to right click on that image, send it to the back, but then to stretch it out and make it fill my entire page like so. Then I can resize the turtle. I'm pretty sure that turtle would be very scared right now with that shark there, but I could then put the bottle in this scene. So I could actually click on the bottle image, click Control, hover over the corner, rotate the image around a bit, and I could show that bottle or lots of bottles all floating around the shark and the turtle. So if I show you that in present mode, you can see that looks really nice. It almost looks like one image. I'm just adding different elements together. So what I've done there is some really nice stuff with imagery, and I'm going to now go to the second page that I added at the start of this video. So we've got a nice blank space again, and this time I'm going to click on insert, and I'm going to show you this option, story blocks. It's a lovely part of Prezi. A lot of people refer to this as almost like the Prezi version of PowerPoint Smart Art, which I think is a little bit unfair, because I think this is actually much better than Smart Art, but I'm sure there's some PowerPoint fanboys out there that will prove me wrong or want to correct me. So this is where you would go if you needed a diagram, a table, even a world map, or maybe a timeline, or some kind of data visualization. So for this, I'm going to click on Maps. Feel free to explore all of these different menu options though, and you'll be amazed at what you can grab from here. Now, in the maps area, there are, of course, it does what it says on the tin, there are lots of different maps to choose from. So I'm going to just grab any of these. Let's just grab this one and drag it onto my page. And in a second, we'll see there's our world map. Now, I really love that dotted style map. I think that looks absolutely lovely. That's just personal preference, but there you go. And the great thing about this is I can move this around now. This is all separated out into different areas. So maybe I like the map, but I don't like the headers that are here. So I'm going to delete the headers, maybe delete the title as well. There we go. And just have the map on its own so that I can add my own little pointers and headers on top of that. So story blocks is a really great time saver. If like me, you're normally in a rush when you're building presentations, then this is a great place to go to get, like I said, timelines, data visualizations, whatever you need. And even me and my team, even though we're trained designers, we do actually use this feature an awful lot. Sure, we make slight edits to the story blocks elements that we bring into our clients' Prezis, but it is a really useful time saver for us, and it's absolutely fantastic feature. So I'd encourage you to explore that as much as you can. Now I'm going to stay on this page because I want to show you some interesting things we could do with our map. If I go to my insert menu here, one thing I did a second ago, of course, is I've got rid of my title. So we looked at adding text boxes earlier, but I'm just going to do that again. So I'm going to add a text box. I'm going to move that up to the top of the screen. I'm going to make sure that it's not body text, which is black. I'm going to make it a title text, and I'm just going to put something in here for a title. Okay, there we go. So again, I'm going to resize this. You can see that as I typed that, it automatically wrapped the text, so it went down to another line. If you don't want your text to be in 2 lines, but you just want it in 1, just drag it across, and then you can resize it by dragging the corners to make it much bigger. So that looks much nicer straight away. If I go back to my insert menu, what I'm going to click on now is the icons option. So icons is another one of my favorite features in Prezi. It's a huge time saver. You can, if you want to, of course, add icons from your library. So if you've taken the time maybe to insert your company's branded suite of icons and then add them to your personal library, that's great. That's going to save you a lot of time. You can upload your own icons as a PDF, or of course you can do a quick search. So I'm going to do a quick search for map marker. I think that's what you call the little things that you see on Google. Here we go. Yes, fantastic. I was right. And what I'm going to do is just drag this black one over. We don't need to spend much time on that. I'm going to drag this black map marker. Now, that's probably, for those of you who are in the least bit creative, you'll probably look at that and think, well, that's a bad decision because black on top of blue does not show up very well. But the good thing in Prezi is that you can change the color of these icons. So with that selected, you can go up to the sub menu here again, and I'm going to make this white. There we go. And then I'm going to resize it and place it on maybe, I don't know, Australia. And then if I copy and paste, so Control C and Control V, I'll just dot a few of these around onto our map on some coastal spots. Here we go. And you can keep going with that, of course. So icons, really, really useful time saver. There is a list of over 500,000 icons that you can choose from. You can also filter them out in terms of categories as well. So again, I would recommend that you really spend some time having a look through those. You may find a nice series of icons that actually fit really nicely with your company brand. If you do, drop them onto the Prezi and add them to your library. So I like these map markers. I'm going to click on that, click the Add to My Library button, and then I've got them for good with just one click. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is bring this map view to life a little bit, and this is where we start to get into our Prezi mindset again. So I just want to remind you that if you've come to this video and not seen any of the videos prior to this, please just pause now and maybe go back to the very beginning of the Prezi Beginners playlist. The reason I say that is there's a whole video about the Prezi mindset and how to adopt that, how to think in the right way. And this is exactly what I'm going to show you here. So if we were in the PowerPoint mindset, the slide-by-slide way of thinking, and we wanted to show information on each of these countries, we would have an individual slide for each country. In Prezi, we don't need to do that. We can actually zoom into each of them and reveal more content when we get there. So what we can do is click the Insert menu, and at the top of the Insert menu here, there is an option called Animation, and I'm going to click on that, and over on the right hand side you can see a blue plus sign. So I'm going to press that blue plus sign now, and I'm going to add a zoom area. And a zoom area, quite simply, is an area that you zoom into. It really is not any more complicated than that. So you can resize your zoom areas and decide where you want to take your audience to. So I'm going to do something like that for the first zoom area. Then I'm going to go and add another one. Add zoom area, do the same thing again. Make it a little bit smaller and drop it over the top. Now you can't copy and paste these zoom areas. You do need to go to the plus sign and do this. So I'm going to do that now. And feel free to follow along with me, of course, and add zoom areas to each of your map markers. Okay, now at the end of that, what I'm going to do is click on the blue plus sign again, but this time I'm going to choose Zoom Out to Page. Now what that means is we essentially zoom back up to see the entire globe. So Zoom Out to Page will bring you back out to see everything that's on that page. In essence, it's an exact repeat of what we do back in the overview level of our Prezi. We zoom into a section, we go back to the overview. This is the same principle, but just on a specific page. Now, if you wanted to as well, you can move these animation points around. So if I wanted to, I could add a zoom out to page after every single zoom into a country. And I'm going to do that now. There we go, fantastic. So you can see down the right hand side now, it's starting to look quite busy. We've got to zoom in to our first country, then we zoom out to page, then we zoom to, then we zoom out, zoom to, zoom out, and so on. And what I would always recommend is when you're adding animations like this, always press the present button up in the top right after 3 or 4 animations, just to make sure you've got everything in the right order. So I'm going to do that now. Here's how this particular section would look. We zoom in, we zoom out, we zoom in, we zoom out. So it looks fantastic. It's going to work really, really nicely. And again, it's going to really engage my audience and take them on a nice journey through my content. But we can take things a step further. So you can manually zoom in back in edit mode. So we're not in present mode anymore. We're now in edit mode. If we manually zoom in, so grab your mouse and scroll in either using the scroll wheel on your mouse or pinching and zooming on the trackpad of your laptop, and zoom in to your first country. Wherever you've placed your first marker, zoom into that zoom area that you added. And what we're going to do now is click the insert button, click on text, and we're going to do the same thing we did earlier. We're going to make this text a title, and let's just add some stats. Let's just, I don't know, 200% or something like that. You can make these up. I don't have any specific report on ocean plastic that we're using, but you get the idea. Now, that could just be a title. It could be a lot of different pieces of text. It could be an image as well. So maybe let's go to our library and let's grab an image of our turtle and let's drag him on here as well. Let's put him just there, like so. And then if we go back to our insert menu and animation, one thing we can do is get things to appear with a click. So I want you to select the objects that you just added. So click on the text, hold the shift key down and click on the turtle, and then press the plus sign over on the right hand side again, and you can see now we've got fade in and fade out. So let's fade in those objects, and we are going to move the fade in animation up to the right level, because there's no point in that fading in when we get to the very end of all of our zooms. We want it to be the second animation in our series. And just to show you again what's going to happen here, if we go into present mode, here's our world map. We right click, or we use a wireless clicker, we zoom in, we click again, and our turtle and the stat appears. We right click, we zoom out to the map. So I don't know about you, but that looks to me absolutely fantastic. We're using the nice imagery that we had in the library that we saved earlier. We've got some nice big stats that people can read really easily. We're zooming into a map instead of just going through a series of slides, and there's all sorts of reasons behind why you should work in that kind of zoom in, zoom out fashion when you're presenting. And it's just a really, really simple and fun way to present. So we could have 20 minutes of content on this one page, so long as we'd planned it properly in the first place. And again, I want to refer back to those previous videos. If you didn't see the video about planning your Prezi, please pause this video now, go back to the start of the Prezi for Beginners playlist and watch the planning video. Really, really crucial. Okay guys, so I want to end this video here. This is literally just part one of inserting media. I didn't want to make the video too long for you. What I'd rather you did now is actually just click around with all of those options I've shown you and actually put some of that into practice. See if you can add a world map from the story blocks, drop some icons on top of it, maybe some images. Use your animation feature to zoom into the different parts of that world map as well, and just have some fun doing that. Again, you don't have to copy exactly what I did. If you have some other ideas on how you could present content, then that's absolutely fine. Go to town with this. This is what it's all about when it comes to learning Prezi. So as always, if you found that video useful, please give it a thumbs up, hit that like button now, subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the videos and you feel like you're on your way to becoming a Prezi master. Please comment below as well, let me know what you thought, and I will see you in part 2 of inserting media.